Hey there everybody, it's Alex here from VG247. I went and played Dishonored 2 a little bit earlier in the week. Now, we'd already played it, and if you're a reader of the website, you will have seen a preview where myself and Matt both played it, and I played as Emily and he played as Corvo, and we basically both played the demo and then both wrote our thoughts into one article. And the gist of our thoughts were that it's pretty damn cool. So when Bethesda said, would you like to come and play it for a little bit longer, same build, same stuff, but be able to dive into it a bit more, we of course said yes. When we played it before, it was at EGX, so it was a trade show. We had a very limited, like, half an hour slot where we just had to rush through everything. This was, I basically had, I think I could have stayed pretty much as long as I wanted, but I stayed about 2 hours. And I essentially played this level through twice in that 2 hour period. So what I did is, the first time I played the level, I played as Emily again, because I know her and I know her powers from playing previously. Obviously Corvo has similar powers to the first game, but he is still different, so I decided to pick Emily. So I did that, and then I played the level, which is the Clockwork Mansion, in a very slow, methodical manner. I took my time going around everything, touching everything, as you can see, picking up everything, reading story details, and so on and so forth. Then, I actually performed the objectives that it gave me in order, and, you know, did everything it asked me to do. So, for instance, there is a method by which you can stop, you can actually let your target live. So I actually did it. It involves knocking them out non-lethally and then placing them in a chair and then administering electroshock therapy, but in order to do that you have to solve a puzzle on the way. So that was cool, interesting to see, and that was different to how I did it with Emily at EGX, where I did play it in a more out-and-out manner and just sort of got upstairs and shot him. Then when I got to my Corvo playthrough, I decided to do things a little bit differently. So you'll see here, for instance, in a moment I'm going to go up to a door and that will trigger a cutscene where Jindosh, who is the target, will come up and sort of taunt me and then walk away and all that sort of stuff. So this I didn't even do with Corvo. So, you walk in the house, you just saw me do it, you know your objectives, so there's nothing to stop you from sort of sequence breaking everything. And what's interesting is how that changes all the voice acting and all that sort of stuff. So, for instance, in my Emily playthrough, Jindosh is constantly goading her, basically, because he knows she's in the mansion, he's seen her, he knows who she is, and he's encouraging her, come and get me, or you're going to die to my clockwork soldiers, or that sort of thing. The interesting thing is, in my Corvo playthrough, I didn't go up to the door, but I did trigger the switch at the start of the level, which means he does know that I'm there, but he doesn't know who I am. He hasn't seen me. So that changes all the voice acting. And afterwards, one of the people from Bethesda did tell me there's actually a way to get inside the mansion without even alerting him, so then he doesn't even know you're coming. And obviously, depending on how all this pans out, that's going to determine enemy placement and what enemies are doing, and, you know, also what you hear, the voice acting and stuff like that. So, you know, we see soldiers and other people talking about, oh, there's somebody in the mansion, you know, you hear some servant types saying, I wish he wouldn't taunt them every time, I wish he'd just throw them out, and all this and that. And that's the interesting thing. You know, this is not new, strictly speaking. Dishonored did this, but it does seem like this game is going to be more competent at letting you sort of do whatever you want. And in line with that, you know, it's also it feels more competent in terms of the different things you can do, not only with the differences between the two characters, but the differences in one character. Like Emily, you know, it would probably do the character a disservice to say that, you know, she is simply the one who's more suited to stealth, and she is, don't get me wrong, but the thing is, you know, you can still play her in a combat focused way, absolutely, without an issue. And that's nice. And then Corvo, he's familiar, but I think the things they've done with his powers to differentiate them, to make them, you know, more interesting, are equally really, really good fun. So yeah, I think the standout here, though, the star of the show, as we said, well, as in the previous preview, is the level. I mean, you'll see here, about to pull a switch in this footage, and you'll see the way the house moves and the way all the parts move and all that stuff is really, really impressive. Like, you know, it's designed in such a way where, yeah, it looks like this could actually work. I mean, Harvey Smith said this in an interview we did on the site, which I highly recommend you have a read of. The mad thing is, they had the internal architects look at this and make sure that, yeah, if you had the relevant technology, you could build these clockwork systems. So here you see one of the interesting differences between Corvo and Emily, which is that her far reach power is sort of like arced. It's almost like throwing a grenade. So it's harder to place anywhere. You have to be much more specific about it, and you might get caught on scenery more, whereas Corvo's blink is obviously far more, you can just sort of aim in a very broad way and end up where he is telling you. You'll have to forgive my early terribleness when it comes to the combat. I was sort of getting back into my mojo, and you will see later on I sort of figure out what the hell I'm doing a bit more. But yeah, I mean, damn, this game is really good. It's one of those things where the guys from Bethesda actually said to me, you can go in and play again if you want, and I was very tempted to do so. But it's also one of those games where I don't want to play too much before I am actually playing the main game. I want to discover more of this, and to have played the same level 3 times, I thought a 4th might be pushing it. So, you know, I finished after the second try. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much else to specifically say. You know, I think the look of the game is still going to be a slightly love it or hate it thing. Like, I actually really like it, but I do know a number of people who dislike the way human characters look in this game. They sort of have this chiseled look to them. There's a hard edges sort of vibe going on a lot of the time with them, and I think it's fine, but I know a lot of people have issue with it. But it's interesting. I think one of the things that strikes me actually is that I obviously just recently played and reviewed Deus Ex, not Human Revolution, Deus Ex Mankind Divided. And obviously this and that have some pretty similar lineage. You know, they come from the same place. Harvey Smith, the director and sort of, you know, created guy of Dishonored, obviously worked on the original Deus Ex. And while not that many people from the original Deus Ex are working on the rebooted version of the series, or the sequel version of the series, or whatever you want to call it, it is still, you know, a sequel to those games, so it's carrying a lot of the torch. What's interesting is the difference in the approaches that Dishonored 2 and Deus Ex, modern Deus Ex take. You know, I do think that modern Deus Ex still has all the stuff along the lines of, oh, you know, you can, all the stuff like, you can do any given level in a number of different ways. But I do think it's a lot more clear in Deus Ex. It's a lot more like, okay, you enter a building and it's pretty clear. You enter the bank in Deus Ex and it's pretty clear, okay, here's the stealth path, here's the combat route, you know, here's the various different ways you can do it, here's some different things in between, but it's relatively clear cut. Whereas this level, at least, of this game, it does feel a little bit more organic. You know, it doesn't tend to be as obvious, and there are things that you wouldn't think to do that do work. It's like I say, I would not have thought in a million years that there would be a way to get into this level without Jindosh knowing that you were even present. But there is. And similarly, you know, there are lots of times when the building is moving around you where in any other video game you'd think, I'm not going to be able to get behind there. But if you're quick with Far Reach or with Blink, you can get behind the walls of the house, and then you can actually sneak around without being detected, and, you know, you can avoid enemies that way, and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, you've got the heart as well, and there are various runes and upgrades hidden throughout the house. And it's, you know, the only way you're going to find them in many cases is to go outside the confines of the house. You just saw there one of my favourite things to do with Emily, which is to far reach on somebody. And if they're not heavy, if it's a heavy enemy like the clockwork soldiers, you're going to be dragged to them. But if it's a human, they'll just be lifted off their feet and dragged towards you in an arc. And that means it's very easy for you to just sort of jam on the right trigger, and you will stab them. Just hold your sword out, and they'll just fly onto it, which is cool and satisfying in a slightly sadistic way. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed having even more time with this game. What I'm going to do now is, you've seen a bit of sneaking around, really. I will switch us over to footage of Corvo, so you can see a little bit of his powers in action as well. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so here we are. This is now Corvo. And yeah, I mean, obviously, the main difference is in the powers. You know, blink instead of far reach, and so on and so forth. The time slowing down, power. But generally, there's also a thing about feel about the characters as well. Certainly, Corvo feels faster and more immediate. Like, I think with Emily, you're going to want to plan your moves a bit more. With Corvo, you can sort of just dash and run for it a bit more. Same as with the Emily footage, I've cut this up a little bit into a few different parts, so you'll get a bit of me, as you can see now, sneaking around the back walls of the house. You'll get a little bit of me actually fighting a few soldiers and a few of the Clockwork soldiers, and you'll get my assassination of Jindosh, which I warn you in advance is a bit of a messy one. I thought I was sneaking up and had the drop, but one of the things that I keep forgetting is that the Clockwork soldiers actually can see in front and behind them, so they're quite hard to sneak up on. But yeah, I do end up almost dying when I go for the assassination, but I kill him. And you also very briefly see how when you blow the heads off the Clockwork droids, they don't know who's friend and who's foe. So one of them, I blow its head off when I'm in the room with Jindosh, and you'll see very briefly, and it doesn't happen for very long because it dies soon after, and then he dies. But you'll hear him like shouting at one of the Clockwork droids after it takes a swipe at him because it thinks that he's me. So that's a cool little, bit about these enemies. And as you can see, throughout both gameplay videos, a big thing is both their limbs can be knocked off and their heads can be knocked off, and the wooden shell that around them can be knocked off. So you see, I just knocked off the wooden shell there, and that was what allowed me to get in there and do this execution move on the core of its body. So yeah, there's some cool stuff here. Anyway, there is a written preview on the site with impressions not just from me, but from Matt as well. So I highly suggest you go and check that out. I won't talk anymore. I'll let this gameplay footage play out now, so you can just see what the game has to offer. But yeah, I really am looking forward to Dishonored 2. It was one of those games where I enjoyed the first one, but I didn't fall in love with it in the same way many people did. But I think I might be more on track to do that this time. The demos I've had have really caught me in a way where this was not a game that was particularly on my radar for a must-have for the end of the year. It would have been something that I would have played, but it wasn't one of my highly anticipated games. That is no longer the case now. Now, I really can't wait to get the final version and play this and see what sort of things I can do with it. I'm really keen to, and this is a compliment, I'm really keen to see how I can break the game's systems and levels in interesting ways. Certainly this is the type of game where a speedrun, the speedrun community is no doubt going to be fascinating. Anyhow, yep, so that's Dishonored 2. Be sure to check VG247.com for more on this and all the other big games towards the end of the year, because we'll be covering a lot of them. Until next time, see ya.
It's a long way down. like what's coming next, stranger? General detection state indicates some detection without tooling. At this point, it's an old man. What was that?
And that mask of yours? Bullets! You do your jobs and protect me, you idiot!
Karen Jindosh. Welcome to the final mystery, Jindosh.